Now let's start with Liverpool. After they smashed the British transfer record to sign Alexander Isak from Newcastle in a deal worth £125 million, it concludes what's been a productive window for the champions, to say the least. And who better to speak about it than former Liverpool defender Jamie Carragher. He's coming. Good morning to you, Jamie. There you are. You look quite happy this morning. I'm kind of not surprised by that. Look, are you relieved? Are you that it just got resolved? And how excited are you to see Alexander Isak wearing that red of your beloved Liverpool?
Yeah, I think it is exciting for Liverpool supporters. I think a lot has been made about how much Liverpool have spent, and rightly so, in this window, but it hasn't been the norm in the past. I think Liverpool supporters have been frustrated at different times, and it's felt like other teams were splashing the cash and, you know, breaking transfer records, and that's what Liverpool, I think, have done twice in this window. So yes, it is exciting to think that, you know, Liverpool are buying sort of ready-made world-class players rather than turning them into world-class players. So yeah, it's just interesting to see now how the manager fits everybody in.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a good dilemma, I'm sure, for Arne Slot, one that he won't mind too much. Look, there's been questions about Isak's durability in the past. He did play quite a considerable amount last season, though. Is that something that perhaps there's a concern for Liverpool, especially considering the fee that they paid for the player?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was his first season more than any at Newcastle, where he missed quite a few games that season. And listen, it's difficult for anybody to replicate what Liverpool had a few years ago, where they used to have, you know, Salah, Firmino, and Mane, and they played every game. You know, they never got injured. But hopefully, you know, when you look at the injury situation at Liverpool last season, that improved a lot under Arne Slot from what we'd seen before under Jurgen Klopp. So hopefully his way of doing things and going about things on the training pitch will help Isak in that situation, because when you pay that type of money, you want that player on the pitch 9 times out of 10.
So, Jamie, you mentioned as well previously Arne Slot's got to figure out a way of fitting all his attacking players in. If you're Arne Slot, how do you fit them all in?
Well, I think Mo Salah plays on the right wing. I think Isak plays centre forward now. I think Florian Wirtz will play in that number 10 position then. The left wing position is probably up for grabs, I would say, a little bit, with sort of Gakpo, young Rio. Maybe Ekitike can play there as well and can also fill in for Isak. Maybe at times we'll see a front two employed by the manager, because Florian Wirtz can play from the left as well. So I think he's got a lot more options on the left. I think we'll see a lot more rotation in that position than the other front four positions. But as I said, you need a big squad. We know that. You look at what Liverpool have been bringing off the bench in the first 2 or 3 games. They've actually won games from the bench, but they certainly haven't had the quality off the bench that we saw when you think of what Arsenal did at the weekend when they were bringing Odegaard and Eze off the bench. Liverpool don't quite have that strength, but I think bringing Isak in now, obviously it gives them such a greater strength in depth.
And Jamie, look, the question that a lot of people are asking, we're still early into the season. Liverpool perhaps favourites already anyway, considering they're Premier League champions. But surely now they must be clear favourites to win the league this season again.
Yeah, I think when the champions go and spend, you know, about 400 million in the transfer market, I think it's hard not to make them champions. I think the worrying thing for the opposition is the fact that Liverpool have 9 points out of 9, and I wouldn't say in either of those 3 games Liverpool have looked anywhere near the best, or certainly the Liverpool that we saw last season. So it'll be interesting to see how long it takes to sort of bed in the new players, new system, new way of doing things, if you like. And you know, if Liverpool are doing that and still getting results, that is a big worry for the rest.
And look, Jamie, look, we've seen throughout this window there's been different ways that players seem to be pushing moves. Some have dealt with it maybe in a negative way by refusing to play, like Alexander Isak, Yoane Wissa, kind of similar circumstance. Mark Guehi on the flip side of that, head down, captained his side, knuckled down, turned up to training all the time. But Mark Guehi didn't get his move. Alexander Isak did get his move. Do you think we're going to start seeing this player power come into fruition a lot more now moving forward?
Well, you probably think so, and I hope that doesn't happen. You look at Guehi, who's conducted himself fantastically well. Still seems a fan's favourite with the supporters, and the manager speaking really highly of him as well. And he'll probably have to wait maybe till January now or next summer to get that move on, and maybe other players in this position in a year's time will be looking at how Isak and Wissa have gone about it, and maybe feel that gives them the greater opportunity to get out. And that would be a sad day for football, really, because I don't think it's been great the way both players have conducted themselves. And I don't have a problem with anyone wanting to leave a club. Transfers happen; it's part and parcel of the game, and it's understandable that those two players want to move on and play for bigger clubs who give them a better chance of having a better career, or winning more or silverware, or maybe gaining more money. But I just can't help but think that if someone's putting thousands of pounds in your bank account every week, you should be training and you should be playing. But would both those players have got their moves if that was the case? We don't know. Both players have now got what they want, and that we have to move on from that now. It's in the past for both players, and let's see how they both do for Liverpool and Newcastle respectively.
Jamie, when you were playing, was there a situation like Alexander Isak, Yoane Wissa, that you saw in the changing room? How was you as players deal with that situation if it arose?
Yeah, there was probably 2 or 3 instances like that when I was a player at Liverpool. Certainly some as well when I moved on. I think notably with Luis Suarez as well. But players are like supporters; they can forgive really quickly, because when you're playing a game of football, you want the best players on the pitch. And if someone's giving you a greater chance of winning games, when winning trophies, you soon get over it. So I think if either of those players would have stayed at their clubs, Isak or Wissa or other players involved in transfers this summer, it can change very quickly in the eyes of the supporters, because as I said, as soon as Isak or Wissa would have started scoring goals, people are celebrating, people are hugging and kissing them, and it's all forgotten.
Now let's go around and talk about Mark Guehi. Move didn't quite happen in the end. How crucial was it that Liverpool, first of all, kept Joe Gomez to make sure they had more defensive cover at the back? But do you feel like that was an area maybe they'll be disappointed that they didn't quite get that deal over the line at the deadline day?
Well, they'd be disappointed because they wanted the player. They didn't get him. But I think there was a lot of talk over the summer, or certainly the last couple of weeks, saying that Mark Guehi was actually more important than bringing Isak in, which I don't agree with that at all, actually. Liverpool only had one centre-forward, so they needed to buy a striker. That was, there was no doubt about that. Liverpool had to bring a striker in, whether it was Isak or not. Liverpool have numbers at centre-back. It's just whether they have the quality. Now, what Liverpool have had in the last year, and will have now until at least Christmas, is they don't have real competition for the first choice centre-backs in Konaté and Van Dijk. They have 2 backup players in Joe Gomez and young Lione, the Italian lad who's come in. So they definitely have 4 centre-backs. That's what most clubs want. In an emergency, I think Gravenberch could play there as well. And Liverpool will just, I think, get to January and try and resurrect the deal for Mark Guehi. But what Guehi would have done was have 3 centre-backs going for 2 positions and put real competition, certainly for Konaté to play alongside Virgil van Dijk. We understand there's a situation right now with Konaté's contract. Virgil van Dijk's getting older as well. So Liverpool did need a centre-back, but it wasn't as imperative as getting in a striker. That was far more important, because there's no way Hugo Ekitike could have led the line for Liverpool alone between now and Christmas.
Look, we've talked a lot about incomings at Liverpool. Let's mention one outgoing. Harvey Elliott joining Aston Villa on loan with a view to make that permanent. Good move for Harvey Elliott. Was that just a necessary move now to further his career, to give him the game time that he needs to develop? Yeah, I think it's a good move for everybody, really. When you think of what he did in the summer, rated or voted the best player in the under-21 tournament that England won. He's got to move to another huge football club. He probably did have to take a little step down from Liverpool. Liverpool are going for the title in the Champions League, and it's very difficult to become a regular in that team when you look at the quality. I mean, the players he's up against, you think it's Mo Salah and Florian Wirtz, really. They're the 2 players in the positions that he likes to play. So it was always going to be difficult for him. He's been a great squad player for Liverpool, always comes on and scores goals. He's been a great sub for Liverpool. But when you've had that role for 3 or 4 years, eventually you have to become a regular. And if it doesn't happen,
you have to move on. And, I mean, as I said, he's got a great manager in Unai Emery now. The fee, I think, is really good for Aston Villa. I think they play in 12 months' time, 35 million. But I think Liverpool would have wanted more money for Harvey Elliott, but I think they recognise the job that he's done and how loyal he's been to the club in the last 3 or 4 years. Not kicking up a fuss, causing trouble at the club because he hasn't been a regular. So they've allowed him to move on for a reasonable fee, and he's going to a great club.
We're going to start with England, and despite Thomas Tuchel's side facing 2 crucial World Cup qualifiers between now and Tuesday, the transfer saga of the summer was a hot topic of conversation at St George's Park today. That's because Newcastle's Dan Burn was the man to speak to the media as well as Tuchel, and the defender insists he bears no ill will. Alexander Isak, who left St James's Park on Monday to join Liverpool. Let's go live to Rob Dorset, who's still at St George's Park for us. And Rob, Burn was the first Newcastle player to speak publicly about the Isak situation, so I guess it was no surprise when he was put up by England that he was going to get asked a few questions about Isak.
Yeah, and it's not normal protocol, to be honest. The FA and the players and the clubs don't like us talking to the players about very much club issues when they're away on international duty. It's not the done thing, but it was such a huge elephant in the room that we were talking to Dan Burn, and I felt we couldn't really not ask him about it, of course, because, as you said in your introduction, we haven't heard from any Newcastle players yet since Alexander Isak moved to Liverpool on transfer deadline day, and about the entire saga which had carried on for a couple of months building up to that. Dan Burn, I think you have to give him huge credit. He's becoming a real leader in this England dressing room as much as he is a leader in the St James's Park dressing room right now. He's a safe pair of hands, but he's very eloquent in the way that he deals with some difficult issues, and he did exactly the same thing again today. And we've often wondered, haven't we, how players feel about the transfer business and how some of their teammates react when it becomes a bit acrimonious. Do they just chalk it up as, oh, look, it's football, everybody's got to make a living, they're trying to do the best for themselves, totally understand? Or do they feel much more like the Newcastle United supporters do, largely betrayed by Alexander Isak? They feel that he's blotted his legacy, despite winning Newcastle's first major trophy in several decades. Well, have a listen to what Dan Burns said, because I think he makes it pretty clear that Alexander Isak is still a friend of his, and he doesn't hold any grudges, doesn't hold any animosity towards the way he behaved.
I'm glad it's done. I think we wanted the transfer window to close, just have a bit of clarity on it. But listen, I've been in football long enough to understand that for a player, the careers are short and they've got things that they want to achieve. So for me, I'm happy that it's over. Alex is a mate, so it was a tough situation because you want him to be around and helping the team, but also understand for him what he needs to do personally. So listen, I've got nothing but sort of good wishes for Alex.
So yeah. No animosity towards him?
No animosity. I think, listen, obviously as a Newcastle fan, and you know what Newcastle fans are like, we're very protective of our club and we're City, and you want players to be there who want to play for Newcastle, and you don't want them to sort of naively think that there's anywhere else to go apart from playing at Newcastle. So I understand why our fans are frustrated. But as I said, I think I've been in the game long enough now to understand what goes on, and as I said, I wish Alex all the best apart from when we play Liverpool, obviously.
We're going to start with the conclusion of a transfer saga that has seen a standoff between player and club as Alexander Isak finally secured his British record move from Newcastle to Liverpool. It was a close-run thing, with confirmation only finding coming through at 10 p.m, 3 hours after the official deadline. The £125 million deal for Isak takes Liverpool's outlay to more than £446 million. That eclipses Chelsea's record of £434.5 million back in the summer of 2023.
Alexander Isak is Liverpool's new number 9. They've confirmed it officially now. He has signed in a British record transfer of £125 million, and he has signed a 6-year contract with Liverpool. And he's had this to say: it's been a long journey to get here, but I'm super happy to be a part of this team, this club, and everything it stands for. It's something I'm proud of, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm just happy it's done and that I can get back to work. I'm looking forward to seeing my teammates and the fans and getting back out there. He added, I think I have a lot to give. I think I have a lot to improve. I'm a striker, but I always want to give as much as possible to the team, mainly goals, but much more than that as well. I want to win everything. Yeah, it's as simple as that. But official confirmation now from Liverpool that British record transfer has gone through and Alexander Isak is their new number 9.
The two players that have agitated the most to get the move they desired, Alexander Isak and Yoane Wissa, and both of them have ultimately got their desires and wishes and they've ended up moving clubs. Mark Guehi, Jürgen Strand-Larsen, players that had the opportunity to move, that have gone about it in the right way, focused on the football, continue to play for their sides, are still at their clubs.
Exactly.
Ultimately, contract is king. And if you have a contract with someone, you will end up staying there. Now, if PIF had turned around to Alexander Isak in that meeting that happened on Monday and said, you're going nowhere, they hold the power. A legal contract is a legal contract. But what you're certainly seeing is the way that players are using social media, using their powerful voices, their millions of followers globally, to agitate and to say the right things. They're being advised by representatives and agents because they know that the best way to get this move happening is for you to do this and for you to try this and for you to do that. And that's what we've seen. And it's going to be fascinating to see what happens between now and next summer, when hopefully we'll have another blockbuster window and see what kind of power players have. But then you could look at Carlos Baleba, Brighton, Manchester United interest, Brighton very firm, you're going nowhere. And Brighton have always been very firm with the players they sell. You're going nowhere until we say and we get the price. So it just depends on the ownership and the current situation with the player that they have a relationship with and the dynamic of that. And that's going to be key.
Yeah, so with the addition of Isak then, Liverpool have built quite a formidable forward line, haven't they? But can they all play together? Michael Dawson says no, and it will be their latest recruit, so we'll have to bide his time.
When Ekitike came in, Wirtz came in, they were pretty unstoppable then, to be honest. You've got to remember, champions last year, and then you go, yes, they lost attacking players in the summer, but when you recruit in the way they did so early on, it gives them a chance to work in pre-season. Ekitike started the season great, and now you're adding Isak to that. And the question is, how do you get everyone in? And Isak, for me, at this moment in time, he's going to have to wait his turn. You've got Sally, you've got Ekitike, and you've got Gakpo. You've got to remember, Isak hasn't been training, so he's been on his own. 3 out of 3 for Liverpool. He's going to have to wait and wait his turn. Ekitike's
30 million to wait.
Yeah. He hasn't been playing football. He hasn't had games, so I think Arne Slot he will certainly start on the bench to start with.
For Arne Slot, it's a great problem to have, isn't it? To have all of those different options, lots of games. They want to go deep into competition, so to be able to change and rotate and. They can play in different positions as well, so I think that's another option. Because you looked at last season, it was Salah he was the one that was going to start, and then it was one of the others would play in the other 2 positions. So, yeah, I actually agree with Dawson. I know what you're saying. You spent a lot of money on a player, but I think initially Ekitike would have to start, wouldn't he? Because he's had that game time. He's performed well. Isak's not.
I think eventually he'll come and be the main number 9, of course he will. But you've got Champions League, and you've got to remember Isak can pick up an injury. They've got so many games. In every competition that Liverpool compete in, they have to get to the latter stages.
This sets a worrying trend for me, in that basically Isak has really gone out on a limb. He's forced the deal. It's been unsavoury, and I do think it sets a trend. And basically, I was beginning to wonder in the middle of last week whether it would actually get done. But I think as the week gathered pace, I think it felt more and more likely. And I think that has been lost slightly. I think the clubs have sort of had the balance of power. But I think this summer has been really instructive over player power, led by Isak, quickly followed by Wissa. Next window, I guarantee a lot more players will be saying to their agents, shouldn't we do something like that?
The player power thing is really a bit double-sided here. I mean, there's actually an argument, I suppose, that the reason players have to agitate is because their power is actually quite limited, and their window of opportunity is very limited. And like all of this is in the context of, say, there's a short career, they want to maximise it. I suppose they have to do what they feel they need to do to try and maximise it. I think John is right. It does leave kind of it can be unedifying, it can feel unsavoury, but. And like, there's the obvious question: why sign such lengthy contracts if these are eventually your plans?
I think that there is something a little bit
off, I think, when it comes to the way we judge player behaviour. I think we hold players to it. And I'd have loved to have seen Isak stay at Newcastle. Like they love him there, he's got a team built around him. But I think we hold players to a higher standard than we do the sporting directors or coaches or agents or the owners or clubs themselves are very happy to buy and sell players and move them around and trade them around as if they're pawns on a chess game.
Nicholas Jackson might be a good example of that.
Well, there we go. I mean, the clubs are very happy to play this game, but for some reason, when a player tries to use their leverage, it's seen as some great moral outrage.
There were suggestions that there were improvements last week, despite the defeat by Arsenal. There were certainly signs that there were improvements this week in this performance at times against Fulham. Are there signs that things are moving in the right direction under Amorim?
I think so. There is the right communication. He's very honest. He says what he sees, and I like the kind of clear vision that he's got. He's got a clear vision. Yes, they are in a process, so things not going to be understood by everybody. There is mistakes going to be made and all that. So I like this process. He still have young players, especially in the forward position. Last year it was a bit of difficulty to manage that because you have to teach them and at the same time you have to show confidence. Now I think we saw there is like links coming. You know, it's strength coming. There is courage in taking certain type of position, but yes, they're still lacking that dominance in midfield. That's why I think you'll be highlighted that. There is elements where the position of the striker is going to be very decisive. I think we need to play in a way where the two playmakers are a bit narrow. They can give a bit more creativity or whatever, but they need to really like be together in all the moment of the game. This is why I think he's unhappy. Sometimes they slow down the kind of like speed and get exposed because teams are fit as well. They are committed as well. And they need to really put them at a level where they're struggling physically or whatever. And that's not the case. So that's why he's not happy. That's why he's frustrated. And he thinks that they can do better. So yes, they score a goal, but that's not enough. Man United need to do more and to upset and to score a second goal and third goal. And this is the situation they are in. I think in a way, I like what he's trying to improve or try to address, and then I think he's coming.
It was quite a big topic of conversation last season that Amorim actually wanted to come in the summer. He didn't want to come in mid-season. He's now had a transfer window. It's now much more looking like his group of players, and we're not at the end of that transfer window yet. Is this almost a clean slate for him, the start of this season, or are we still judging him on what went on last season as well?
I think it's a clean slate. You know, like you said, he come in halfway through the season and it wasn't when he wanted to come in. He's had a summer transfer window. Obviously, there's still time to do a few more dealings. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But I think once the window shuts, then you know this is his team. And like Louis has been saying there, that you've got to take positives out of what we've seen, especially like the man just saying in the first 20 minutes how they started the game, and they started quick, and Fulham didn't know what to do. But it's just then when you go a goal up, especially when you come to Craven Cottage, you need to go and get the second goal. You need to kill the game off. And they wasn't able to do that. So it's still a bit of indifference there, but there's like I say, there's positives to take. And, you know, we spoke about, you know, if you're going to have Sesko up top, the big target man, you've got to have two number 10s that want to run off him and, you know, get him behind. We haven't stretched the pitch enough. And, you know, I think Fulham felt comfortable when, you know, he come on, that there wasn't really much running him behind. And, you know, I think fitness tells us as well that Fulham looked like they went up a gear and United literally just sat there. And, you know, when you're doing that and you come to a place like Craven Cottage, it's going to be tough. So it was, there was positives in the game, and I'm sure the manager will take positives out of it. And, you know, like you say, it's a clean slate, but, you know, it's about getting the wins and moving forward and scoring goals.
If they do add more in the transfer window, where do you think they're going to be looking to strengthen? Obviously, the goalkeeper situation needs to be sorted out, but do they need to strengthen in midfield, for example, as well?
I think so. This is why I think they've been in the transfer market looking for some Brighton player. Just to mention, they need power. They need people who are able to take on the ball, maybe suck the opposition, whatever, like technically, but physically as well. There is moments in the game where you need that. You really need that aggression, but at the same time, that confidence to actually drive on and show that you are dominant. I don't think that we have that at the moment. It's been said not only by me, but I think that's obvious. And then it's all about attitude. I think the approach of the game, where they're saying there is maybe sometimes where they think about the results, whatever the approach, need to be a bit more courageous and say, no, we have a style, we have the confidence to score more, and this is where they need to get that level up. It's not about new players or new sign or whatever. It's about this attitude and showing that we are good enough, and we're going to do that for 95 minutes.
Louis said a Brighton player. Would Baleba or someone like him be the answer for Manchester United?
I think you do need someone else in that midfield. I think Casemiro was in there today. Bruno Fernandes was in there, and then, when it was changed, it was Bruno Fernandes and Mason Mount, and Alex Iwobi was picking up pockets of space that they couldn't track, and there was midfield runners that were running off where you need a midfielder if the centre backs are picking up the Fulham forwards, then you've got track midfielders there, and it just looked like there was spaces opening up. Whether it's a mentality thing that you've got to pass that on and talk to each other and help each other out, but I think there's going to be some more movement in this transfer window, and I think Man United do need a midfielder that can play as well as defend, can get up and down the pitch, and if it's that player from Brighton, then possibly he might be the answer.
And at the same time, you just like to look at what Amorim has said about the frustration of Bruno Fernandes. We've seen it. I think he was like middle of the park, trying to controlling the game. It was a bit deeper than he usually is. And you could see his body language was saying, I would love to be involved a bit further up. And then I think a player alongside him who some moment can show, he say, go on, I've got the confidence and I'm going to actually take care of those situations and create some transition for you to create. And at the moment, that's not the case.
Louis, tell me a bit more about the integration of Sesko. You've both mentioned him. You both mentioned how Manchester United are going to need to adapt to that and what he's going to need. How much of it is about him learning how to play with that team, them learning how to provide for him? Because 25 minutes against Arsenal, 37 minutes today, it's hard to adapt to him if he's not playing.
Yeah, it is hard, but it's a process. You have to believe the understanding of the manager. He sees you, he understands the kind of need that you have to, when you come from another championship, it's not the same. The Premier League is really tough. I was saying about the welcome package that I receive. You get bullied, you get all those things, and you have to really understand. And by being in Man United, it's not the same. You really have to understand there is pressure coming, there is expectation, all this, and you have to learn when everybody is asking a result, asking goals and statistics. So it's a process, and I think the manager understands that. He tried to get not the same mistake that maybe he's done with Rasmus. It's not him, but there is element where those players need experience. I always felt like, back in 2 years ago, I was thinking about Harry Kane. Those type of player was able to really teach you like a lot of things, but his movement and all that. So I think in the situation where if the transfer market is closed and they don't have another addition up the field, I think he has to go with a few games like this where he's brought in, put confidence, he has some nice touches. I really feel like he can create a partnership with those two playmakers just behind him. I think he needs to be closer, and then I think we will see chances.
And as you said, it doesn't look like it's worked out with Rasmus Højlund, not involved in the squad today. The AC Milan deal isn't happening, but Napoli, the latest team to be linked with him. But for Sesko, and you talked about statistics, 16 touches, only one of them in the Fulham penalty area. Is that down to him not making the runs or him not expecting that the balls are going to be coming into him? A combination?
I think it is a combination. He's only been in there a couple of weeks, so he's got to learn a new team, a new style of play, I think, because it would have been different to the club he was at before. Ruben Amorim's going to expect a lot, and like Louis said, when you join a club like Manchester United, there's so much expectation, there's so much noise outside. It's starting to learn what players do, the runs that they do, and it's a formation where if you're the target man, you're going to need runners off you. And we said it. We said we need the number 10s to be either running behind or getting round him. I think at the time when he come on in the game as well, Man United were on the back foot and Fulham was starting to grow more and more into the game. So it was difficult, it was tough. But, everybody's seen what he can do, everyone's seen what he can produce. It's just learning more in training, getting to know the players even more, and then, showing his capabilities and his abilities on the pitch.
Well, you join us on some huge breaking news because Tottenham Hotspur have just announced that Daniel Levy has stepped down from his role as executive chairman after nearly 25 years at the helm. He is the longest-serving chairman in the Premier League, having been there since February 2001. And they have just announced that he's stepped down. I just want to read, because there's a long statement. This is what he said, and then I'll get your reaction, Lee. It's a huge story. Daniel Levy said this: "I'm incredibly proud of the work I've done together with the executive team and all our employees. We have built this club into a global heavyweight competing at the highest level. More than that, we have built a community. I was lucky enough to work with some of the greatest people in this house, in this sport, from the team at Lily White House and Hotspur Way to all the players and managers over the years." He goes on to say, "I wish to thank all the fans that have supported me over the years. Hasn't always been an easy journey, and we'll talk about that, but significant progress has been made. I will continue to support this club passionately." Lee, I just want to get your reaction immediately.
I'm absolutely shocked.
Yeah.
I really am shocked. I mean, I think there's always been talk around Daniel Levy for all sorts of things at the football club. Last season was a real poor season. But I'm so shocked. I really am. I can't believe that, that he's left the football club. Is that good? Is it bad? I think we'll have a mixed view on that. But really, really shocked at how long he's been there and took the club to where it's got to, you'd say. And particularly how much they've invested in the summer in players and a new manager. And now he steps down and walks away. It seems pretty bizarre. I'd love to know what goes beyond that.
I mean, it's like he says himself, it's been at times really tough for him because the fans have held him very much to account when things have gone wrong. When it wasn't going well for Ange Postecoglou, the fans start to go at Levy. So interesting as to why he's actually decided to step down right now when he's brought in Thomas Frank and the club looks to be heading in the right direction.
Well, that's the thing. Is there something more to it? I mean, you like you say, you feel that. Last season was a complete write-off, and yes, fans are going to be disappointed. It's Tottenham Football Club. They deserve better. The squad that they've had there, the manager that they had at the time, Postecoglou. Winning trophies was something that they based themselves on, which they ended up doing so. But you think to yourself, the transformation in what they've done, and he would have played a big part in getting Thomas there and bringing players into the football club and trying to turn the football club around, if you like, because that's where you get criticised as being the head man. Seems very, very weird that this has all of a sudden just jumped out at us. I can't get my head around it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll read some more quotes because it might help us to get our heads around it. Peter Charrington, the non-executive chairman's been saying this, if I can just get into this, sorry. He said, I'm very honoured to become my computer's not a good time for that to go wrong. Become non-executive chairman of this. To become non-executive of the extraordinary club, and on behalf of the board, I would like to thank Daniel and his family for their commitment and loyalty to the club over so many years. This is a new era of leadership for the club on and off the pitch. I do recognise there's been a lot of change in recent months as we put in place new foundations for the future. We're now fully focused on stability and empowering our talented people across the club, led by Vina and his executive team. I mean, that's what they're going to need, is stability straight away. I mean, I wonder how Thomas Frank is.
Well, yeah, because I mean, I'm sure that there was. Listen, Thomas Frank made the choice and obviously, left Brentford. But I think when you're looking at sort of the foundation of the football club and the aspirations of the football club, that certainly would have pulled Thomas there and said, this is what we're looking to do. And to be fair, he has laid down the foundations, but. The ironic, crazy thing about it is that he's walking away, and who knows who's coming into the football club or what's happening.
OK, right, stay with us because we will have plenty more on this huge breaking news.
Stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us are Jack Rosser, football reporter for The Sun, Riyadh Samurai, the chief sports feature writer for the Daily Mail. Welcome along to you both, gents. We'll speak to you shortly. Let's just quickly run you through the back pages as we have them so far. The Guardian carries news of an angry Mark Guehi after his move to Liverpool fell through at the last minute. A story we've been covering throughout the day here on Sky Sports News. His anguish at missing out is in great contrast with the joy for Alexander Isak and Yoane Wissa in getting their moves. And the Telegraph's Jason Burt says that the lesson is that bad behaviour pays off. The Express has Isak changing his tune over Newcastle as he leaves, and they report Manchester City's capture of Gianluigi Donnarumma. The I newspaper has plenty on its back page, including an absolute thrashing for England's one-day team against South Africa at Henningley. Plenty to discuss then with our guests, Jack Rosser and Reeth Al-Samurai. Welcome once again, guys. Well, we've got to start off with the fallout from transfer deadline day. So here we are more than 24 hours on, but it still feels, in a weird sort of way, it's simmering because there is this feeling of, at some points, unseemly fallout, particularly at Crystal Palace, who've obviously had an eventful summer. Let's put it that way, with rows aplenty with various people. Jack, if I can start off with you, how do you feel, and what's your take on the way that this fell apart? I know it was on, the borderline, 50-50 for Guehi, but it did feel like it was disarray and real discontent at Selhurst Park at the end.
Yeah, it sounds like quite a fraught day for Crystal Palace, especially internally, and they're going to have to pick the pieces up. It's been an unhappy summer, like you said, all the way along. Towards the end of last season, their most successful season in their history, winning their first ever piece of silverware under Oliver Glasner. Towards the end of that, Steve Parish was speaking about learning the mistakes from last summer, the year before, when they moved slowly, they were passive, they did deals late, as they always have done at Crystal Palace, and they had a very, very slow start to the season. And just as we got into this one, they were building up the Community Shield, which they obviously won that as well, 2 trophies, one off the other quite quickly. And Oliver Glasner was laid it bare and just said, we've not done what we said, we've not done what I was promised, we've been passive, we've been slow again, and it really could cost us. And he's not someone that hides his opinion, and he's been deeply unhappy with the way things have gone. And it just feels like that moved to almost, not quite, but almost breaking point yesterday. Everyone's reporting, there's a lot of understanding that Glasner really put his foot down. He was very clear after the win at Aston Villa over what he wanted to happen, and that was that Mark Guehi wouldn't go. And then yesterday was just an absolute roller coaster of waking up and it's not happening, then it's happening, then it's not, and then it's all agreed, the medical's done, and then even while Mark Guehi's in there, the plug gets pulled and suggestions that it could be revived. It's going to be such a difficult day for a player like Mark Guehi. It would have been a huge move for him. But I think really this whole idea that he's missed out completely on a dream move, we probably need to move away from that. He's 25. He's got the pick of probably Europe's best clubs next summer. He's captain of a Premier League team. He's England international. He is going to be okay eventually. The more interesting thing, I think, at Palace is how that relationship is now between Steve Parish and Oliver Glasner, whether they're getting on fine now that Guehi stays and the manager is happy for a bit, or whether they move on from here or not. He's out of contract, just like Mark Guehi, next summer, and has shown no sign of signing a new deal anytime soon. So I think that's where the real worry is for Palace, because he's made such a difference to that club.
Yeah, you mentioned the 2 trophies they won in relatively quick succession, I guess, end of one season, start of the next, so win-win. But weirdly, Reeth, this situation feels a little bit lose-lose-lose. Mark Guehi, because he was towards the end really keen on going and then doesn't get the move. Oliver Glasner, with all of his frustrations this window and having to try and take a decisive role in stopping, losing Mark Guehi, and then, the situation on losing the money as well, because they now won't receive a transfer fee for the player unless, in some bizarre scenario, he goes in January for a fee. Guehi doomsday scenario became the best option for Palace. What's your view on it?
I think just adding really to what Jack said there, it's incredible just how quickly the air's gone out of the balloon there. I think I'd still, in addition to Eze, the situation with Glasner, with Guehi, the Europa League situation, I still find fairly unpalatable, actually. I think it was an extraordinary judgment that went against them, and we've seen what the precedent is elsewhere, the manoeuvres others have taken. So to go from the mood at Wembley to what it is now is remarkable. I think for Guehi, one of the things I find interesting about this, and it's not searching overly hard to go and put a positive slant on what's clearly going to be an unhappy situation for him, as we've seen on a couple of the back pages there. But we are talking about a World Cup year. Now, if he was to go to Liverpool, Canate is plainly the weak link in that central defence, but he had a very good performance at the weekend against Arsenal. Then you've got Van Dijk. Is there a guarantee that he's going to get into that starting 11? Because I'm not so sure there is. So seeing out this season at Crystal Palace, where he's the captain, he is going to be a regular starter. He's going to continue to look fantastic because he really is a brilliant player. It might not actually be the worst thing in the world for him. I think the bigger picture there is what's going to remain of the relationship between Parish and Glasner. I was at the game the other night, Sunday evening at Villa Park. The way Glasner spoke after it, he didn't hold anything back whatsoever. I think he must have answered 4 or 5 questions on it, full answers as well. We cannot afford to lose this player. Our entire season depends on it. Those aren't sort of standardised messages from a manager to his club. And Parish has to look at this from the point of view of £35 million for a elite centre half you could probably get in most defences across Europe. It's not obviously a good fee. Losing him for nothing in the summer is also going to be exactly what we'd expect it to be. It would be a horrible scenario for them. But you don't want you want to go through this season with him. Losing Eze in the same season, I think Palace would still be too good to be in trouble, but suddenly you start to ask questions. This Wharton injury as well. All of this is snowballed into a pretty ropey scenario there. So I'd look at it more from the point of view of what they've been able to keep now. Will it keep Glasner happy? I think what Jack's saying there about him not signing his new contract suggests that they should enjoy him while they can. But he's not a guy. Given how well he's done there, I think you do everything you can to keep him happy as well. So it's an incredibly messy scenario.
And of course, Mark Guehi's conduct in terms of playing for, captaining, and of course scoring memorably for Crystal Palace at Villa Park on Sunday night is in stark contrast with the conduct of both Alexander Isak and Yoane Wissa. If we head to The Sun, your paper, Jack, the behaviour of Isak has even drawn the wrath of the great Geordie hero Alan Shearer, who has slammed striking stars like Alexander Isak for making mugs out of fans, writes Gary Stonehouse. Interesting that he points out here in his piece, Gary, that Isak tried to claim he would be forever grateful to the Magpies. A Newcastle statement announcing his departure was 37 words long. What about this player power point? Because it does feel like the guys who have agitated for the moves have got them, and the ones that didn't, haven't. How do you see it?
That is definitely one thing that's come out of this window, but there are players that behave properly. Eberechi Eze kept playing, continued playing until he got his move from Crystal Palace to Arsenal. So there are some cases against it in terms of that. I don't know whether Guehi going on strike, it's just not in his character at all to do that. And it's something that will further attract clubs next summer for him, that's not in his character. But broadly, it's worked for a few players. It's not a good look for any of them, I don't think. Obviously, it's not stopped them getting these moves, but it's not a nice thing for fans to see. Fans pour their heart and soul and their money into these clubs and don't feel that the players reciprocate that every now and then. They maybe see them kiss the badge and think that they believe in this, but it quickly turns around. Whether Isak had got the move or not, maybe it would have flipped quite quickly again. He could have been adored by the fans at St James's Park after a couple of goals. I don't think the players would have ostracised him at all, because it could be them in a year's time trying to force their way out and find a move elsewhere. But I think Alan Shearer almost hits the nail on the head. Whether it's the tone of getting the move done and that's how you have to do it now, I don't think that's quite right. But those that did it, it's really not a very good look at all.
Also looking at a piece in the Telegraph from our friend of the show, Jason Burt, who's chief football correspondent there. He doesn't mince his words, Riath. If I just read out the first paragraph. The transfer window is broken, are his opening words. How else to describe a system in which players effectively go on strike to try and force a move, and there are disputes over gentlemen's agreements with arguments that they are there only to be reneged on. How is that good management? Jason, as I say, not pulling any punches here. Would you go as strong as that, or do you think it's just this in window and or do you think there's something more endemic in football about the way that the players hold the power and are now going to their own platforms to try and wield it?
I think it's a really good piece that Jason's written there, and I'm inclined to share the point. I think what Isak's done this window, I think it reflects dreadfully on him. Same with Wissa. I mean, they're kind of portraying themselves semi-ludicrously as freedom fighters in all of this. You're not. Guys, you're earning absolute fortunes on massive contracts. Now, I've said on this show previously, I have a degree of sympathy for players and their dynamics with clubs. Right? They're treated like commodities. They can be sold at a moment's notice when they're coming through a system. As kids, they're looking left and right at mates getting released and sort of dumped, and we talk a little bit about aftercare, but let's face it, it's not really an equitable relationship. So when they do have a chance to have a little bit of power, I don't tend to begrudge them it. But what I would say is that clubs, when they're getting rid of a player, they pay up their contract or they sell them into another contract, which is presumably pretty lucrative. These players are downing tools. They are under contract. They are not fulfilling those contracts by refusing to play. I think it's pathetic behaviour, quite frankly. So, on that subject of player power, is it especially new? It looks that way because it's just happened in a very dramatic window, and it's every time these sagas come and go, they always leave an impression. But players have had the power. Had the power for years. We've seen that in the relationship with managers. Managers are disposed of every 8 or 9 months because you're not going to overhaul an entire squad unless you're Manchester United every summer. But it's that that dynamic is embedded. It just looks particularly bad in this window when the highest value player of the market has resorted to this mechanism. I think it's been interesting with Guehi. He's almost being, quite rightly, by the way, by everything I know about him, he is a great guy. He is a model professional. But let's face it, he is being praised for not robbing a bank here. It's, he's honoured his contract. Yeah. And that almost seems to be the exception to the rule, which
although just let me come in a second here, Riyadh. In counterpoint to what you've just said, our reporter Gary Cottrell's been out in Sweden and he's chatted to Victor Gyökeres and about the Alexander Isak situation and the stance that he took. And his own point of view, of course, given his situation with Sporting and the situation with the president there, was that, well, if you're not wanted, you're treated like a piece of meat. So there is another side of it where clubs, when they hold the cards, can really force the issue that way. Nicholas Jackson's another one with Bayern Munich. Chelsea saying, oh no, hang on, Leon Delap's got an injury, you've got to come back. The guy's in limbo. He's literally caught between the clubs. I wonder, what's the role of the agent here? I mean, apart from trying to earn off the transfer, obviously. In the Telegraph, Isak agent fires parting shot is the headline there. I wonder, do they need to take more responsibility here? Is that a naive thing to say, Jack, for agents? Because obviously, they're part of the information that we gather. They're part of this show, but they're also part of the smoke and mirrors around it and the drama it creates.
They're a huge part of it, and I think it's probably better I think Jason argues brilliantly in his piece that we need more transparency. It would be great for everyone, even the fees yesterday on Isak, it was 125 from one place, 130 from somewhere else. Wissa was 50, 55. Doesn't really matter, but does in terms of the wall being pulled over people's eyes and the smoke and mirrors, like you mentioned. But sort of almost going against that, it might be better if the agents did stay behind somewhere at some point, because you're starting to get now so many pushing out statements and lauding what they've done, and this is incredible and this is fantastic. And fans don't really want to hear that. Agents are paid incredibly well. Some of them do absolutely fantastic work for their clients and really push for them to get deals over the line. Agents will have been driving all over the country, all over Europe for their players yesterday at every level, not just these huge big deals, players getting loans to championship clubs and starting their career and building a pathway for them. But I do think we could do with some agents just checking their privilege a bit every now and then and not having to insert themselves into the stories on top of absolutely everything else, because sometimes the advice isn't sound. The advice maybe and we don't know if this is exactly the case for some of these players, but some of them will have been advised to go on strike and just calm down there.
We live in hope, Jack. We live in hope. Obviously, we can take a break now because it's a while till we open that January window. OK, thanks for the moment, gents. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll look at coverage of Gianluigi Donnarumma's late move to Manchester City and the flip side of the transfer windows and mega money deals covered in the Telegraph. Football's free agents in the spotlight.
Hard. 2 games at Bayer Leverkusen out. Why have they done it?
It was funny because the sporting director, Simon Rolfes, who used to play for them, of course, he spoke about it at lunchtime today, gave a press conference. Erik ten Hag's had his social media retort, and maybe we'll get to that in a little minute. But Rolfes said, look, I made a mistake, but it would have made it a worse mistake if I hadn't have done anything about it. Now, of course, you go back to him taking over in July when he wasn't the first choice. They thought they had Cesc Fabregas. They didn't. Because Como wouldn't let him go, and Fabregas wasn't prepared to go to war with them, of course, as a part shareholder. And so they ended up a couple of choices down the line with Ten Hag, and it felt like quite a good placeholder. He's got a good reputation in Germany. But from the off, there were misgivings. I mean, about 2 weeks in, they went on this promotional tour of Brazil and lost 5-1 to the Flamengo under-20s. And then he said after that, well, no one's bothered about the results of pre-season games, are they? Everyone's a little bit on edge. And then from there, of course, lots of people who are defending Ten Hag will understandably say, of course, they've sold a lot of players. Even before Hincapie, they'd sold over 200 million euros worth of players this summer, so it's a real sea change. But one of the key players going was Granit Xhaka, of course, who was the chief lieutenant on pitch of Xabi Alonso. But they felt that he didn't really make much sense. In a post-Xabi Alonso world, they could get out from under the rest of his expensive contract, make some money with him. And the CEO, Fernando Caro, and Rolf is the sporting director. They signed this off with Ten Hag, and then Ten Hag goes public and says, I don't think we should sell him. I'm pretty sure that's not the conversation we had 2 days ago. And this was one of a series of things that really set them on edge. And then you could tell in the first couple of games, not only were the performances poor, not only did the team look really untrained, but it was the fact that Mark Flecken, who of course has just joined from Brentford, after the first game where they lost at home to Hoffenheim, he was happy to tear the team's performance to bits in front of journalists. And you're like, well, if Ten Hag really had authority here, that wouldn't happen. You had an argument over who was taking a penalty at the weekend, and the captain had to step in. Ten Hag moaned about that in the press conference afterwards. So he's contributed quite a lot to his own downfall as well.
Andy, we've got about 15 seconds. Can you tell us how Ten Hag reacted to his sacking?
He said it was all Leverkusen's fault, basically. He said he didn't feel backed by the club, and everyone who's ever stuck with him has won a trophy at the end of the season. Spoiler alert, if they'd have stuck with him, they wouldn't have.
Finally, the deal is done. And finally, we see Alexander Isak training. The first time he's trained with teammates for over 3 months. The saga is over and his relief is clear to see. Isak's deadline day deal meant he had a busy and long day, eventually arriving at the Sweden team hotel in the early hours, looking pretty exhausted. 10 hours later, after a decent sleep, he seemed up for the challenge. Sweden first, then Liverpool. How is he? Have you spoken to him? How's he feeling?
I haven't spoken with him too much because he just came. So yeah, I said hi to him and congratulated him for the move, and not so much more.
Because you had a move yourself to a big club, at times a difficult move. Do you have some sympathy for what he's been through? Yeah,
as I said earlier about my situation, I think can be the same, that you don't really know what's been going on behind, and yeah, so I don't really know in his case what the situation's been exactly, so yeah, it's difficult for me to speak about that.
Alexander Isak and Victor Gyökeres training together here earlier, together in the Sweden squad, and together when it comes to the spotlight this summer, being put on player power to force a move to a club the player wants to join. Twin strikers in more than one sense of the word. There's talk, obviously, of player power getting too important in the transfer market. Is that unfair to say that?
What do you mean?
Player power, like forcing moves.
I mean, we all play, and I think the clubs has the most power, and yeah, it's maybe difficult for the players to choose in a lot of cases, and yeah, when it's a player that's not wanted in a club, I think it's the total opposite, you know, and he doesn't have any power, and yeah, the club can literally do whatever they want with the players. So yeah, it's difficult, but yeah, it's how the situation is.
Arsenal fans love Gyökeres, Sporting fans don't. Liverpool fans love Isak, Newcastle fans don't. Sweden fans, though, could see both sides.
He's going to take care of him, his business and his future and his career, I think. I think that's pretty easy to say.
For me, it's simple. You have a contract and you follow it.
What do you think of him then?
I think he's a great player. He's a great player. He has performed in every club he's been in. I think he's a great football player.
Isak could make his Liverpool debut at Turf Moor a week on Sunday, and those who know him well say he'll have no problem living up to his 1.6 billion krona price tag. This Stockholm-based journalist has been covering Isak since he was a 16-year-old.
What struck me back then, and the reason I always expected this day to come, is because of how mature he was, even at that age. He was just an incredible talent, but he also had the brains to back it up.
Meanwhile, Arsenal fans have quickly taken to their new signing and his latest goal celebration.
What was that about?
No, I just had to check if it was good or not. So, yeah, that's what I did.
It is good.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. Alexander Isak is good now too. The summer was hairy at times for him. Now he aims to again make striker headlines for all the right reasons. Gary Cottrell.
Be one of the best players in German football. Show us how good you are. This is unacceptable for German football.
One such nation is Germany, and that's where we begin in this edition of Scoreline, visiting Slovakia, losing by 2-0. David Hanko, David Strelic with the goals either side of halftime. You look at those statistical figures, you think, oh, Germany played well, but they were just unlucky. 70% possession, 14 shots with the 4 on target. But Ian Joy, that is not the story of this game. You might look at a statistical profile, and in some ways there are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics, because Germany were outplayed today. They didn't really put in much of an effort, and they were fairly soundly beaten come the end of this game.
Yeah, listen, first and foremost, I got to give some love, obviously, for the home nation for getting that type of a result against Germany. Slovakia 2, Germany 0 in a World Cup qualifier. It's something that's never happened before in World Cup history. Germany losing that World Cup qualifier away from home, especially being that first one. It's so desperately disappointing for Germany, but for Slovakia, the goals they scored, Witty, they showed true quality. Obviously, the goalkeeper was outstanding, made 5 big saves on the night. And I think he won player of the match, which we were critiquing just a little bit. Strelic with the assist and the goal. You kind of want it to go to an offensive player.
And that second goal is so good, too. Cutting it off the right, leaving Antonio Rudiger in the dust and curling one top bins. It was stunning.
I mean, that's exactly what they did do. They made Germany look a little bit foolish defensively. But I think offensively, they do have some weapons. Sauer, Strelic, Duris, also very impactful. Lubuka in midfield, outstanding player. I know you're familiar with his style of play. I mean, they've got some experience in that midfield. And I do think that there was always going to be a difficult game for this Germany, right? Please remember, everyone, this is not the previous Germany. This is not the Germany from 2014. We're miles away from the quality that Germany need to be, and they were beaten by the better side tonight. I know the stats say it, Quitty, and you pointed it out. The stats simply say that Germany had chances and Germany should have scored. Not the case. When you're watching this game, you see a very even matchup, and you see a Slovakia side who took their chances.
I want to pick up, though, something you said, though, on this Germany team, that it's not the same as it was before.
Yeah.
You still look at the team, though. Joshua Kimmich in midfield. Florian Wirtz just went for 130 million over to Liverpool. Karim Adeyemi comes off the bench. Serge Gnabry comes in. Do you feel like, and we'll talk about this in full detail, that is there a dearth of talent in Germany, or are there other issues? Let's hear from our Rafa Honigstein, our German football correspondent, on the reaction to this loss.
Germany have lost their first ever away game in a World Cup qualifier. That's how historic the defeat away to Slovakia was, and it was an absolutely awful performance in that 2-0 defeat by Julian Nagelsmann's side. No structure, no individual class, and defensively all over the place, and anything but a defeat would have been a travesty, because they fully deserved to go down 2-0, if not more. From the get-go, they had real problems in the build-up. Slovakia, with a man-to-man pressing system, made it difficult for Germany to play out, but all attempts basically faltered due to either positioning issues or the individual passing quality of both Oliver Baumann and the fullbacks lacking in precision. Germany hardly created any chances. Woltemade up front was completely anonymous. Florian Wirtz had one or two moments, but couldn't really dominate the game. Kimmich looked a little bit lost in midfield. Goretzka ineffective as a number 10, meant to be sort of a battering ram in the box. Nothing really worked. And from the wings, Gnabry and later on Adeyemi had no impact whatsoever. Lots of food for thought for Nagelsmann, who now has presided over a third successive defeat in a competitive game after Germany's 2 losses at the Nations League in June, and all to do with a real uphill battle as far as winning back the trust and confidence ahead of that game against Northern Ireland, which suddenly has become a must-win game for Germany in its qualification group. What a night.
And more on that doubt about Germany qualifying for the World Cup in a moment, but it is worth remarking upon the stat that he starts with there. Yeah. They've never lost an away World Cup qualifier, and here they are losing to Slovakia in 52 attempts they hadn't lost before today. But I want to get back to the point that you raised earlier, which is this team just not good enough? Because there are plenty of players that are rated highly, that went for big transfer fees, and it is still Germany. But do you feel like this team has fallen off to the point where now losing away to Slovakia is not a surprising result? I feel like it's still fairly stunning. They still outclass Slovakia in terms of talent. What isn't coming together for the group?
I mean, listen, it's a group of players that's been put together and hoping that the performance actually comes out. Obviously, I followed the German national team from my time in Germany, following it closely from how they redeveloped and rebuilt a German national team from their failure in '98 to all of a sudden winning the World Cup in 2014. For me personally, this group of players is missing some key experience. They're missing some sort of fight and desire. And you would love to say that the names that you had mentioned, your Joshua Kimmichs, your Goretzkas, even your Florian Wirtzes are the ones that are going to step up and grab this game by the scruff of the neck, as they say, and basically run amok against the Slovakia side that you're clearly better on paper than. However, this is not necessarily a great group of players when you put it together. Let's put it into perspective. You've got a Woltemade who just went to Newcastle for a ridiculous sum of money, who can't even get a shot on target. This guy is struggling for effort. He just struggled to get involved in the game. He looked lost out there. Looked like he didn't know which position he was playing. Tactically had no clue how to get involved in this game. You had a Florian Wirtz who was obviously frustrated. He's the one who's trying to always play make and always trying to create. But the biggest frustration about Florian Wirtz, in my personal opinion, is when your team needs you to turn up, and you've seen us Liverpool fans already, he's sort of the player that sometimes doesn't necessarily turn up. He turns up in the other games. He'll get a hat-trick, he'll get himself a couple of assists, he'll get those big assists, and then all of a sudden he's a hero again. That's why all that money was paid by Liverpool for him, because he clearly has potential. But these big games you've got to turn up in. And then defensively, it's absolutely embarrassing. You pointed out the wonderful finish from Strelic, which is outstanding. But you're going up against Real Madrid centre-back and Rudiger. Made him look foolish. He made him dance around. He made him spin like a top. I mean, it's unacceptable defending. First and foremost, it's commitment, and also commitment to just go close down the player who's in possession of the ball. Taking nothing away from Strelic and his finish. But Taz not much better alongside him in that centre-back position. I think Collins and Mittelstedt are average footballers. Personally, sure, they've been transferred for big money, but still average footballers. Serge Gnabry, where's that attitude? Where's that aggression for him being wanting to be one of the best players in German football? Show us. Show us how good you are. This is unacceptable for German football. Now, that one stat stood out to me. The other one that really stood out to me was the fact that Germany, okay, it's only the second time Germany have lost a World Cup qualifier by more than 1 goal. The other time was way back in 2001 when they lost to England at home 5-1 in a World Cup qualifier. Germany's history with FIFA competition is normally very good. Today was a real blemish, and it shows you how desperate times are that Nagelsmann's fighting against.
Are you worried now that Germany might not qualify for the World Cup? Because here they are in this group with Slovakia. It's only a 14 group. So basically, you've got to beat Northern Ireland and Luxembourg in both home and away matches. And you got to beat Slovakia at home by a significant enough margin to overturn this deficit. This is what the table looks like. Northern Ireland having beat Luxembourg in the other game. Yeah. Germany could potentially then enter a playoff. 1 game in, are you already worried that they might not be at this World Cup next summer?
Honestly, I think this is a real blemish, and I think this will hurt the team, and I do think there will be better performances coming from Germany, and it's a real scare. But you've got to take care of business against Northern Ireland. Those next 2 games are against Northern Ireland and Luxembourg are at home before you then have the same opposition away from home back-to-back. So I would imagine they take maximum points there. The Northern Ireland one I'm slightly worried about. I'm just going to throw it out there. That's
you away.
Difficult place to go play. But this Germany team, if they perform like that, they'll struggle against Northern Ireland. They might even struggle against Luxembourg, who have talent in their ranks as well. But I do think it comes down to that last game. And then it's about how many goals you score. Can you score 4, 5, 6 goals in that game against Slovakia? Germany could. On their day, they should absolutely turn up. I think when the pressure really comes to it, when the crunch time really hits this group, they will turn it on. But I don't have much confidence at all with what I'm seeing out there as far as the talent, as far as the quality, and after that performance, as far as the desire.
And how much pressure now is on this man here on our center screen, Julian Nagelsmann, the coach of Germany. Coached the team through a home Euros, got to a quarterfinal, was a decent result. But now, as Rafa mentioned, lost the 2 games in the Nations League, loses this game here. The pressure will be on him.
International football is a different game for a lot of managers, and this one in particular will hurt Nagelsmann clearly. He's got his work cut out for him. He's got to be able to get this group together. He's got to be able to create some sort of chemistry. He's got to create some energy. He has to get the German media back on board. The German media, you just heard from it right there. Rafa Honigstein almost fell asleep watching the second half. That's how crap his team were. I mean, this is nowhere near good enough from German standards. The national team needs to do better, and we could be looking at another project reboot. Das Reboot, you remember it? That happened in my time when I was in Germany. I mean, it was amazing the amount of money they put into these young players and forcing young German players to play in Bundesliga clubs. Maybe the clubs need to look at themselves in the Bundesliga. Are you giving yourself an opportunity for these young, incredibly talented German players to come through the ranks and get an opportunity, or are you just looking to win? I think clubs have a responsibility within this type of a result as well. We need more talented German players out there, and this group just doesn't seem to have it.
Thing we've learned today, that everybody's learned today about England, is Elliot Anderson's possible suitability at this level. I'm not sure we learnt much else, did we?
Well, not really. But we got the job done against a frustrating team. But again, we've got somebody who's come into the fold who hopefully, when he plays against better opposition, he can go again. Because if he does, then that's going to be someone that we need. We need that player.
Yeah, I don't think the manager didn't look too happy at the end there. I think he'd be frustrated again with the second half. We're on about setting high standards and getting to good habits. I still think England fell back into their old ways again tonight. Certainly in the second half, sideways, backwards passes. We saw their 2 goals tonight, particularly the second one, just from across. They've got to cross it a bit more. Don't complicate the game. And I still think they go backwards too many times.
Yeah, you were actually asking while we were watching the second half to put some crosses in. Very simple what Reece James does, isn't it? Gets it out of his feet.
Especially if you've got players like Reece James in possession. We saw the goal, it was very straightforward. Obviously, he gets good first touch, and Declan just walks in there. And the beauty with the cross, it's always Andorra aren't even set up for it because they've been used to dealing with balls in front of them. But nice place of pass, just put it in there. I watch all levels of football, as we all do. The amount of goals that come from crosses, England's 2 goals today come from crosses. Don't be reluctant to cross the ball. And a lovely finish by Rice. Very good.
They want to stop us coming through them because obviously they were quite narrow. So the space is on the wing, and we have got players who can head the ball. You just think, get the ball wide, get the ball in the box. You see how dishevelled they were, and all over the place when the ball's going in the box. Just do that.
Yeah, especially when you've got time on the ball and you've got bodies in there, because when players come back out, they're going back out the other side to do what? To cross it anyway. But you've got that opportunity, take it.
What we are watching today is, I think, what quite a lot of people see, particularly in the Premier League, and they wonder, therefore, whether it is as exciting as it was a decade ago, which is this horseshoe football, isn't it? comes to one side, you don't cross it in, you go all the way back out the other. You say,
yeah,
quite
no,
often
I can
just
get
put it
that
in
sometimes when you're trying. If you're trying to keep possession, or you're up against a really good defensive team, you thought, listen, we have to pass and probe. But against a lesser opposition, and you've got it in the wide positions, and you've got time, don't be reluctant to cross it.
Yeah.
Especially when you're playing against a team that they haven't scored in I don't know how many games it is. 14 games or so. I don't know. You can afford to try and pass it through. Then you'll get it back in a couple of passes.
If you can't play with freedom against teams like Andorra, you're in trouble. And I still think England were still a bit uptight with some of their passing in the final third.
What about Eze in that sort of number 10 role? How do you think he did?
Well, I thought that he would have maybe. I thought that in some instances, like we saw in the first half, just stay still and get on the ball. And he had an opportunity in the first half where he done that, got his half a yard and took the shot. You'll probably be disappointed he could have done better with that. But as long as Eberechi is staying in that area, I'm really happy with him.
The worry for me, I think we talk about players like this. I think I think you've done okay, but the manager should be saying okay is not good enough. We need to set higher standards than that.
Thomas, you said in your programme notes, I want a spark at Villa Park. Did you get that?
Yeah, I think so. It's difficult. It's a very different crowd to a Premier League crowd. I think we would have got the crowd going, but it's very different and we know it. So, but I think the energy was right. Quality was there. We should have scored more. After the first goal, I think we had like 10-15 minutes with too many ball losses. Lost a bit of focus and concentration, but second half found it again and created a lot of chances, and like I said, should have scored more.
How did Elliot Anderson do on his debut?
Very, very good. Very, very good.
What impressed you most?
Well, he was a bit nervous in the beginning of the training week, and then he did good, and we said let's try it, but he showed that he can become a very good player.
Yeah, has he got enough in that position for you to go, right, yeah, you're playing in Belgrade against Serbia?
That was the test, and I think he passed the test, so why not? There's no reason why he should not play in Serbia. If we decide to have the position for him, he's ready to go.
Was maybe a vision for your game the second goal? It was direct. Obviously, there was a wonderful cross involved. Were England at times today maybe not direct enough?
No, I would not say so. I think we missed a little bit the little moments to accelerate the game. Maybe Ebbs had not his very best day on the number 10 position. He trained so well in the decision-making, struggled a little bit. Last pass from Noni, last decision from Noni was not clinical enough. Max Rashford had some good moments, but couldn't finish them with a clinical assist. So, no, it's stuff that this can happen against a narrow 5-4-1. Should have scored maybe the second one earlier, because the second goal gave us a lot of freedom and players moved more freely and with a bit more confidence.
What have you learned today?
A lot. That we're on the right way. The group played with the exact same attitude that she trained and it trained, and I'm glad for the players. So we will prove the point now in Belgrade, and that's it.
Yeah, you're certainly getting as well a lot out of Noni Madueke, aren't you? In that role, he looked particularly impressive at times today.
Yes, that's what he needs to give. He sometimes has a bit of a lack of concentration or falls asleep in counter pressing, but if we push him, if he pushes himself, he can be a very important player. Bukayo is at the moment injured for Arsenal and for us, so he steps up, and that's what he needs to do.
You're 5 games in. Do you think, however, you might learn more about England from one game next Tuesday night?
Yeah, we will learn a lot from next Tuesday night. We're ready for it. We know what's coming. It's a difficult away game, but it's a crucial game for us because we can make a huge step into the qualification. And we are well aware of it. Same system, total different quality, total different style of play, much more physical away game. So, yeah, we will be prepared. We have Sunday and Monday to prepare to travel, and we will be ready.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Do you find his singling out of players quite refreshing? Because he doesn't do it aggressively, does he? He's just saying, no, he needs to concentrate a little bit more. He trained well, but didn't play quite as well as I like today. Do you mind the way he does that?
I don't mind. It's a nice message to the players, and it never seems too harsh. There's a nice tone with it, and he seems to be coming from a good place. So I think the players would appreciate that.
Because it's as if to say, I know what you're capable of. So just, concentrate more there, try a bit harder there. You could be really, really good in that position.
Yeah, because there's a lot of emphasis on England to win well, and I don't think we've ever done that. We've always been attritional in games and get it done. I think the women showed that. But the way he is and the way he talks about it, he tells them instantly. You can see him on the line when he's upset with something, and they know the levels that they need to get to, and they're going to make sure that. And what I should say is, what he wants them to do is, when they're playing, is to bring out the best of what they're capable of doing.
This goes back to the short-term contract, doesn't it? In terms of his attitude. Yeah. I'm not here for long enough to have to worry about it, or frankly be too worried about how you're going to react. You know, you've got to do it if you want to be in my team.
And that might work. You know, he hasn't got any long-term plans with this group of players, and that's why after games maybe he can be critical. But again, he's got a nice tone to him. And he mentioned there about the final pass from the attacking players, but that's really important. So he's also been critical of him, but a nice way about him.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Reece James then, set up that second goal. Here is with Gabriel.
Well done, Reece. 2-0. But how do you sum up England's performance?
No, it's early on in the season. You know, we haven't had so many games, you know, to find rhythm. But no, it was a win. You know, a start. You know, in the right direction. And no, it's a positive, you know, positive outcome from, you know, losing to Senegal.
As debuts go, where do you place Elliot Anderson's?
No, I think he's a phenomenal player. You know, I think you know, he fully deserves to be here, and he you know, showed that with his performance today.
What impressed you the most about him in that sort of six role?
No, I mean, I've played against him a number of times, and I've seen what he can do in the Premier League. You know, the toughest league in the world, and you know, I thought his call up would come sooner. But no, that's credit to him, and you know how well he performed today.
Was the template for what Thomas Tuchel wants the second goal, your cross, direct, the finish, was that the sort of type of football maybe that we want more of, might see more of moving forward?
No, I think you know, when you go into, you know, tournaments and you play against, you know, different teams and different style of players, you know, you need to adapt, and you know, that was the game plan for today. But you know, going on to Tuesday, that might change.
If he stays fit, would he be first choice, do you think?
I think so, yeah. When you look at what he's capable of doing, whether it's defending, passing, even if he inverts and go into the midfield, he's comfortable there. And we've seen that if he gets the time, spacey across the ball and put it pinpoint, and defensively very sound. Absolutely, yeah. If he could stay fit, no danger.
Yeah. And the manager knows him. I mean, which is hugely important, is it? Because the manager knows he can trust him.
He's got great quality. We saw a brilliant ball in the first half that Kane probably should have got the end of it. The key for him now is staying fit over the next few months and get some games under his belt and get up to speed. And the good thing for England tonight, some of these lads needed the minutes and it wasn't demanding on them, so they'd be a better place for Tuesday.
Elliot Anderson, I think, is going to play in Belgrade, isn't he? I like the way he didn't shy away from that either. Didn't say, just wait and see for selection. No, he's good enough.
Well, that's what you want. As a young player, he said he was nervous at the start of the week. You want that backing from the manager and that trust, and that gives you great belief as a player.
Will there be a part of this squad who actually want Tuesday to be quite fiery, quite hostile, very demanding? Will they actually want that in a way?
I think we
probably
want
test
that.
themselves.
Yeah, because you want to see that. You want to see that. You want to have that test. We need that as well. We want to see if Elliot Anderson can, like, OK, this is the turn. They've turned the heat up a bit. Let's see how he... Yeah, you want to see that. You want to see Noni Madueke playing against maybe better opposition. See if he goes past people. You want to see Ebreches in that middle, getting his 10, like we've seen he can do, slipping balls through, taking shots if he gets the opportunity. You want to see all that.
Yeah, because of the lack of jeopardy quite often with a lot of these groups, you almost have to go looking for it, don't you?
I think
Belgrade should offer.
Yeah, I think the players and the manager and the staff will probably look forward to it. I think it'll obviously be a hostile atmosphere, but let's not kid ourselves. Serbia aren't that great either. If England bring their...
Created more than we converted in Andorra and today as well. I think there are a lot of chances for goals and a lot of half chances where we can be more clinical, have to be more clinical. But overall, there are much more positive things than the negatives today. I think it was a good step. Try to speed up the game constantly. We had to give everything to the match, of course, and play against a deep block. But there are no concerns today. There are still things to improve, but the direction was the right direction. After the 4 days of training, it was a good performance, a deserved result. I think should have won with more goals, but it's not the problem. The energy was right, the attitude was right. Guys were positive with each other, and so I'm absolutely okay with that. And from there, we take more positive, like I said, than negative.
Well, one of the highlights for England was the performance of Elliot Anderson on his debut. He completed 107 passes with a 94% accuracy, with 20 passes into the final third. Completed 7 of his attempted 8 long balls, won 100% of his tackles, recovered the ball 15 times and won half of his ground duels and aerial duels. It was a very good afternoon for him.
I really enjoyed it out there. Thought the team done well and got the 3 points, which was the main thing.
You looked incredibly comfortable in that environment. How much of that was down to the fact that you'd been to a tournament with the under-21s in the summer? How much of it was it down to you feeling comfortable in the environment? How much was it down to the fact that you're actually a really good player?
Yeah, could be from the Euros. I think a lot of it sort of maybe it's from training this week and the lads welcoming me and making me feel at home. So yeah, I went out of there and felt really good.
What did the manager say to you before you went out?
Just stay calm. He spoke to me in the hotel and just said, obviously I'll be nervous, but he said it's normal and just stay calm and do what I do.
You got any messages yet?
I haven't checked my phone.
Let me just tell you some of your stats. 107 passes completed, 94% pass accuracy, 20 passes into the final third, 7 out of 8 successful long balls, 100% tackles won. They don't sound bad, those stats.
No, decent to be fair, yeah. No, as I say, yeah, I'm happy with the role I played today and I really enjoyed doing it.
We know you want to go to the World Cup. Do you think you've given the manager a message, something to think about?
I think it's only one game, really. I think I'm focusing on the next game and then the game after that to try and make an impact. So, yeah, and then obviously all eyes are on the World Cup.
Couldn't have gone on much better, though, could it?
No, not really, yeah. Well, it could have if I scored, to be honest.
Did you think you had... I mean, look, it was a good save, to be fair, from the keeper, wasn't it, that one?
Yeah.
Or do you think you should have got more on it, perhaps?
Yeah, I should have scored, I think. Yeah, but it is what it is next time.
He's just a very, very good football player. He has the physicality. He's a very mobile 6. He has the body. He loves to defend. He loves to put his body inside to win duels. He loves passing. He loves to break the lines, and he's just very mobile in his game. Was a pleasure to see. Was a bit of a nervous start into the week, which is also nice to see that not everything is normal for the guys, but they're still nervous to come to camp and are not afraid to admit it that they were a bit nervous. But very, very quickly he adapted to the quality and then we thought, why not to give him his debut straight away? I think the team around him made it as easy as possible for him, and yeah.
Well, we witnessed something that we've seen a lot of times because we've watched England play Andorra, it seems about 100 times in our lives.
Yes, we have.
And we know Andorra are very organised. We know they're really difficult to shift out of this sort of deep block 5-4-1 shape. And England, again, really struggled to entertain us, I suppose, and to thrill. But they were much better than they were in Barcelona in June when they won 1-0 away to Andorra, and it wasn't pretty. Tuchel had promised this would be much more like the England he wants to create with better patterns of play, and we did see that. They moved the ball quicker. Elliot Anderson was very impressive in the middle. Madueke was very good on the flanks, so there was a bit better sort of one-on-one play wide. But there were outbreaks of really good football, and then there were periods where it looked a lot like what we've seen before, which is England struggling and huffing and puffing to try and break down a smaller opposition. They tried a lap of honour at the end. Most of the fans had left, which sort of said something. I think that image of Tuchel that some of the front pages or back pages have carried, that great image of him sitting on his sort of...
Bielsa-esque. It's like
Bielsa-esque.
Yeah.
And in similar pain, actually. And just sitting on his sort of trunk of water bottles, contemplating the meaning of life while England sort of pass the ball around endlessly against a team that's ranked about the same as Chinese Taipei. I mean, it's welcome to being the England manager.
Below them, actually.
Below them. There you go. Look, it was better. I don't want to be facetious about England. It was a lot better, actually, than the Andorra game in June. They're at the stage of having to try and take baby steps, I guess, because the start of Tuchel's reign has been so sort of mixed, and June was such a downer. So he was quite upbeat in his press conference. He felt it was a necessary improvement. But we all know it's Serbia on Tuesday that in some ways his reign starts.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in depth a little bit later on in the show. Jackie, what's the problem, though? It's a 2-0 victory. Why is the performance so vital for England rather than almost the result, do you feel?
Because fans want to believe that England men are going to win a major trophy.
People want to believe it's going to happen. Gareth Southgate raised the bar from level par quarterfinals to level par finals, as has Serena Wiegmann. The difference is she's got over the line twice. We've had that feeling. We've seen the victory parades along the Mall. We want to get over the final line. And getting to 2 finals under Gareth Southgate was outstanding compared to where England fans had been and journalists and everybody who'd been on those journeys. But it hasn't necessarily masqueraded some of the way that people feel. And I think quite often it's not necessarily where your team are in a table, whether it's in the Premier League, whether it's in non-league. It's how you feel about the direction of travel.
Yeah.
And Thomas Tuchel has been brought in to win the World Cup. It's a short 18-month contract. If he wins the World Cup, not one sausage is going to be looking back and saying, do you remember at Villa Park when it was a little bit flat and there weren't that many fans there at the final whistle and they didn't win 4-0, they only won 2-0? It's about winning something. So the question is, are they on track? Are we seeing signs that he's bringing something different? There are so many players out injured who will presumably be at the World Cup if they're fit. And the players always say, when you play against that kind of side, ranked where we said they were, 174 in the world, below St Vincent and the Grenadines, you want them to win 5, 6, 7-0. You want them to be exciting. You want them to be getting fans off their seats. Of course you do. But really, you want them to qualify with ease, which is something that so many teams have not managed to do. Italy weren't at the last World Cup. No. Chile have just failed to qualify for 3 World Cups in a row. Nigeria, Egypt with Mo Salah and the Ivory Coast, they weren't at the last World Cup. England are taking qualification for granted now. They need to win something. So last night, if you're a paying fan, I totally feel for you. If you're a journalist, less so because you pay to be there. But are England going to win the World Cup? Were there signs? I like the fact that he was quite honest afterwards, saying, I wanted more from Eze. I liked what I saw from Noni, liked what I saw from Anderson. These are positive signs. So Tuesday night, as you say, that's going to be more fun. They're going to come out to play Serbia a little bit more, and the atmosphere is going to be a heck of a lot better.
Jason, it was referred to as insipid on The Observer. Yeah. Is that fair? Was it insipid?
I mean, I think the problem is a lot of qualification games are insipid. I mean, we've been here before. If you look at the history of just covering qualification for tournaments, they tend to be not that thrilling, the games. The problem with Tuchel, I think, is that he came in, and I was at one of his original press conferences where he said England had no identity, it was all a bit turgid at the Euros, I'm going to give you that. And we're like, OK, fine, you've kind of like had a real go at Gareth Southgate there, really. You know, it's quite strong stuff. OK, you've talked the talk, now walk the walk. Yeah. And I think if you're going in there and saying, I'm going to give you this identity, I'm going to play this type of football, I'm going to get... And then you're watching it, you're thinking, 5 games in now, we're still waiting. I know, and 5 games into a very short reign, in which obviously it will culminate with the World Cup. And I'm still waiting. I'm still waiting to see. Now, that might be quite a harsh judgment by me, but he's given a harsh judgment when he came in. Yeah. So if you're going to give a harsh judgment, you're going to expect harsh judgments. You know, if you're going to come in there and be the big sort of manager that he is, obviously paid an awful lot of money on a short-term contract to win the World Cup, that's it, as Jackie says. That is it. So therefore, we are allowed then to give them quite harsh judgments in return because that's what he's asked for. So that's the problem I have with it. I think the qualification campaign as such, 4 from 4, no goals conceded, absolutely fine. They're going to sail through to the World Cup. Hopefully, if they come out of Serbia with a decent result, it'll be fine. But we want more. This is about more now. We've done all this before. We've got to tournaments. As Jackie says, England have got to finals. We want the man to win it now. So he has to show that. And I think he's not showing enough at the moment. He's not showing us enough that he can win a tournament with England. And I think that's the problem I have with it.
What does he have to do then? You know, we saw him sat on a box. You know, we've watched body language actually from managers. You know, no more so than Ruben Amorim in recent weeks. You know, so we're witnessing kind of this tough watch that, as it was called in the Sunday Telegraph. You know, tough watch, Thomas. There we are, the picture there. What does he have to do then? As Jackie said, does it have to be a 4-0 will? Does it have to be emphatic? Did it have to be controlling the whole pitch? What did we expect?
I think when Jack said it's about the direction of travel, I think that's correct. And he was actually asked about his comments about Gareth yesterday in the press conference. There was a question saying, well, you promised more rhythm, more intensity, identity. Where is it? And he was very strong and he said, I am convinced that we've started something today, that we're on the right path. And as I say, in fairness, there were better signs. But it is relative.
He's only had 5 games.
He's only had 5 games, and it is part of the the strange sort of short rein that right from the starting gun, he's under this sort of pressure. I'm not going to judge anything until I see them in Belgrade. I do also think England are under a unique pressure, but maybe because of, I wrote about this week, but maybe because the Premier League's so good and so exciting that when England play, everyone is a little bit, and I think the fans go into these games almost wanting to see a bad performance, almost angry. And so, for example, Germany haven't been booed off at home for 2 years. England get booed off all the time. You know, I think.
Why is that? Do you think our fans expect more? I think
there's a frustration they're not winning. I mean, I think we talk about Italy not qualifying for tournament, but they've won. They've won a Euros. England just haven't won, and that's the problem. It's like, yes, they keep going so far, but it's that point of like getting over the line and being winners. I mean, the women's team have done it. You know, the men's team still haven't done it. During the week, Tuchel was saying, well, it shows that England aren't cursed. Well, of course they're not cursed. You know, they're just not cursed. It's just a question of getting over the line and actually having that sort of winning mentality to do so. And I think that's the frustration for the supporters. And I think touching on the Premier League is quite an interesting one because we've come into the Premier League, it's been, it's exciting, it's the Premier League, then it stops. Yeah. And then you're thinking, right, go on, England, entertain us. And I know we're in the results business, but also the entertainment business. And you watch that last night, you're thinking, I'd rather watch a Premier League game, wouldn't you? And that's the point. And the great thing about England is they're the only thing in town when they play. The terrible thing about England is they're the only team in town when they play. And it's all or nothing. The focus on England is 100%. And obviously then they become under more scrutiny. We obviously harder on them in some ways, but we expect more from them as well. I think it's an opportunity for them to deliver, and I think we haven't seen that yet for quite a long time. And I think Gareth brought a lot of excitement around getting deep into tournaments, winning knockout phases, winning penalty shootouts. Absolutely fantastic, and now it's about getting over the line in the way that obviously England done with Serena Wiegmann.
I would say, in fairness to Tuchel, that the last year of the Gareth reign, the last 6 months, were a dip compared to what had come before.
Still, okay.
And so I do think what we're seeing now is also in the context of that Euros, where yes, England got the final, but in terms of entertainment, it wasn't there. So there's something about the mix of players in the squad that, in fairness to Tuchel, he is trying to sort out. But he was wrong to sort of suggest it was Gareth's fault, I think. I think we're just seeing maybe now some of the issues that Gareth was trying to deal with.
Once you've done that, though, going back to the point I made before, once you've done that, you've created a problem for yourself. So we can get a reference back to that and say, well, you said you were going to do this, and you still haven't done it. And I know you're saying it's only 5 games in, but it could be Southern, by the way. He chose not to take the November camp. That was his decision. It could be Southern. So the one thing I've said to him before is, you can't complain to us about not having enough time with the players because you decided to give up a camp. That was your choice. And I know I'm sounding like I'm being quite harsh on him, but I think he needs that in some ways to be said to him. He needs to be said, you decided not to start until January. You could have started in November. That was your decision. I know he didn't have his backroom staff in place, but you could have taken over that camp. You could have had 2 more months working with England in terms of behind the scenes and being through the FA, but you chose not to do that. OK, fine. You've done that. So don't complain to us about not having much time. Plus, also, you wanted a short-term contract. You wanted this to be just one hit, short, sharp, go in there, try and win the World Cup. So get on with it. Do
you feel he's taken off more than he can chew then? Is that the feeling?
No, not at all. Not remotely. No. Okay. This is a top manager. This is a Champions League winning manager. This should be something he embraces.
He's been brought in for this. Yeah. He's been brought in because he has that experience, because he knows what it feels like to be expected to win Champions Leagues and to win. So that's what he's for. And we haven't mentioned it yet. Maybe it's not relevant and people kind of tiptoe around it in the modern day, understandably so, but he is German. He's a German who traditionally we've all grown... Well, I'm the only English one here, actually. You two are Scottish, aren't you?
We had barely votes and that came as a German
that's not a good reference.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. But the fact is, England have gone out and got a German manager. So it's almost like you kind of have to really show it on the pitch. You have to show progression even more so to have not... however, Eddie Howe didn't get the job, didn't go for the job, whatever it was. The fact you have a German in charge of the English national side, we don't have an English male or female head coach, is not ideal. You forget about it on the women's side for obvious reasons. Everybody adores Wiegmann. But on the men's side, he has so much to prove. And as you said, Jason, we haven't seen it yet. Over the years, a lot of qualifiers have been pretty turgid. Yeah. Like Henry Winter said, he's been to, 100 of them, qualifiers, and he said he can count on one hand how many have actually been any good. So you want to see the progression. You want to see the direction of travel.
That sort of 100 games, it's quite a tough task to ask.
I don't think they do, and I don't think the manager can do anything about an international calendar, which I think is insane. England play Andorra more often than they play Holland or Spain or Argentina or Brazil. You wouldn't design a a competition where you're almost never playing the best teams and you're always playing these qualifiers, and it's just hard to look good. But I find, like, I always find the messaging really interesting around England, and I do think there's been a change this week where Tuchel is a bit more humility, perhaps, a bit more focus on it. You know, I was on learning on the job for the first 4 games, so a bit more. Maybe it's my fault a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's a fresh start, and we're going to work. And one thing that was interesting at the game yesterday was, you remember the sort of the special tune that the FA had commissioned for Tuchel, the
Thomas Tuchel's Army.
Thomas Tuchel's Army.
Drum
Tell
and
me
bass.
if you want it. Drum and bass. They didn't play it yesterday, and that just. I mean, there were fire cannons and stuff, but it seemed like they were just trying to let's just dial it down a little bit and maybe restart. But the real restart, as I've said, is in Belgrade.
Dare I ask, were there any positives from yesterday?
Oh no, absolutely. Elliot Anderson was fantastic. I mean, I think he's put down a big marker there to be in the team against Serbia. I think he's got a big marker there to be in the team, or the squad, sorry, going forward for the World Cup. Obviously, he was brilliant in the Euros. I think it was the right decision to take him to the Euros, under 21, sorry, rather than with the senior squad in the summer. I like that decision. I think you want a player to go and win something. He's done that. I think he was a huge positive. I thought Nani Madueke was quite good. It was interesting that Tuchel criticised him out of position, which is fine. I think it's absolutely fine. He's allowed to do that. Obviously he wants to get more out of the player. Yeah. But I really liked him so far this season. I think he's got a bit of directness to him. And also, as we already touched on, a lot of players were missing, and I think sometimes you're throwing a team together, so it's a bit difficult to sort of criticise too much in terms of like a team being thrown together. Half that team won't be in the team at the World Cup. They definitely won't be. And I think obviously half the team were missing. So that's all understandable. But those two definitely. I mean, Anderson in particular, I think Anderson's got a real chance of being in the team, never mind in the squad. I think we've all looked at him and liked him the last year in particular. To be fair to Tuchel, he's managed that quite well. As I say, let him go to the Euros within under-21s. He always had it in mind to put him into this squad. And I think it's the same with Adam Wharton, who I think, again, is a great chance. It's a shame he's injured. I think he's another one who could come in. And that might transform that midfield a little bit. So I think there are positives, absolutely.
So my final question then is perhaps to all of you. Could any manager, do you think, get a team up for that game? It's Andorra. The stakes are pretty low at the moment. They're top of the table. So do you think any manager could have done that? Or
I don't think they weren't up for it. In fairness to the players, I don't think they weren't up for it. I think when you hear the players come off the pitch, they're like, win, clean sheet. Yes. It's really hard to break them down. And I did my Square Stato thing and went online and looked at the average positions after the game. And 19 out of the 20 outfield players were camped in their Andorra's defensive half. So when players talk about it and ex-players talk about it, they say how hard it is at the time. And I do think it would have been very different had England got an early goal. And Tuchel said afterwards, it took a while for the second goal to come. And when, I think it was 67th minute, I think, he said after that, then we could play, we could bring on the subs and it was more fun. So, yes, we're going to read something into it, of course, because it's not the first time England have struggled. But there's a few other things maybe we'll come on to in due course about playing Harry Kane 90 minutes in both games against Andorra. How helpful was that to anything and to the World Cup, which is really what we're talking about here. Yeah. The goal is to win the World Cup. Yes, you want to beat Andorra, but there are question marks.
I thought that was strange. I think it should have come off. It definitely should have come off and put one.
And
who's his understudy? I mean, what are we going to...
just Watkins, and let's say we've got dearth.
There's real dearth in number 9 as centre forward, but I think it's a bit perverse not to bring Watkins on. Yeah. And also at Villa Park as well.
And also he struggled, Harry. It was one of those.
I mean, just take him off. You're allowed to take him off. It's not... Doesn't have to play the whole game. I think that was a really strange decision, actually. I agree with that.
Yeah, so you said Harry Kane's probably worst performance in an English shirt.
I couldn't remember, and he's a loud one, isn't he? But I can't remember seeing him less effective. I mean,
we had about 5 defenders around him.
Yeah, 5 defenders. and I mean, it's hard to look good against Andorra. Like one of the things they did was they just let Dan Burn have the ball, and they defended everyone else.
Why play Dan Burn then? Why play a non-ball playing centre half?
Absolutely.
You can ask that question. Why play Dan Burn? And obviously he's going to play John Stones, but why play Dan Burn then? If you know that's going to be a problem, then don't play him. Yeah. That's why and we talk about, obviously, what I find quite maddening with them talking last night, saying, yes, it's difficult, Andorra, low block, defensive. This was exactly what we were saying in the Euros. They were vilifying the team in the Euros for having that against virtually every team they played in the group stages, didn't they? Obviously Slovenia and so on. Low block. So we've got to find a way. They have to find a way.
As well.
Yeah, Serbia will sit back, but they'll have more threat going forward. But so England have to find a way. And actually, you could argue, counter-argument is to say this is a good test for England, what they might face at the World Cup when they play a lesser nation. So therefore, they just about passed it, not really. I mean, I wasn't that impressed by a lot of the play. I think it was they were playing in areas that were making it easy for Andorra, I felt. They were going into the centre of the pitch too much. And I just think they should have try and get in behind them more. But, I mean, listen, it worries me that there isn't a pattern of play yet. There isn't a real identity. That's the main issue I have with it.